everyone, I would like you to meet my dog, Mr. Wiggles. Don't worry, he's friendly. He really likes warm hugs. Many Subnautica players, myself included, have started a game and enjoyed how beautiful the starting area, how engaging the game is, and how expansive the world is. They got a sea glide, got some stuff, and headed off to explore the greater world when they see some of this and some of this. Jokes aside, Mr. Wiggles probably has the world record for the most amount of Subnautica playthroughs cut short. Even after you left him behind, the looming presence he has, even when he isn't actually there, adds a whole new level of terror to the game. If you like that, you confuse me. However, personally, I am very sensitive to jump scares. Mr. Wiggles is one of the very few jump scares this game has, so knowing where he is and how to avoid and handle him has allowed me to play the game. And it's one of my favorite games of all time. So, here's a guide on how to find, avoid, hide from, and kill Mr. Wiggles. Before we start, quick spoiler talk. While I will not be discussing the story in the game, I will be discussing some locations in the game you would usually discover as you progress the story. I will be using vague terms and not talking about their association to the story, but I will be discussing where and how to find them. I will also not be using a map or the compass, since the game doesn't have a map and you don't get the compass super quickly, and everyone has the life pod and the Aurora as navigation points. I will also be discussing how to tell what biome you are in, at least for the biomes that has Reapers in them, based on site and terrain, as well as the location of it based on the life pod in the Aurora. But enough talk. Mr. Wiggles' technical name is the Reaper Leviathan, and though I have been talking about him in the singular, there are actually 25 of him scattered throughout the map. However, they are all concentrated in 3 biomes: the Crash Zone, the Dunes, and the Mountains. Even though there are 25, most players will only encounter 5 or 6 at max in a single playthrough. The vast majority of people encounter them first at the Aurora. The Crash Zone is, you guessed it, in the immediate area around this Aurora. You can tell if you are in the Crash Zone because the plant life dies off, the ground is bare save for metal scraps and boxes, there's really only a few stalkers, and you're being pelted by lovely radiation. The area of the Crash Zone people spend the most time in, the area along the side of the Aurora closest to the life pod, doesn't have any Mr. Wiggles except for 2. One at the bow of the Aurora, or on the left side, and one at the stern, on the right side. At least, those are the ones you will likely see. There are actually 3 at the bow, 4 at the stern, and 2 along the backside farthest from the Aurora, which I honestly had no idea you could actually go there. This leaves a grand total of 9 Mr. Wiggle spawns in the Crash Zone. When you are going to the Aurora, you want to avoid Mr. Wiggles. Aim for the middle of the ship from wherever you are coming from, and then make your way forward. When you get to the part where there is an opening, immediately go into the ship. You may see a tail or hear a roar as he is very close, but he shouldn't follow you into the ship. The other place most people encounter Mr. Wiggles is in the mountain biome. Here, there are 7 of him. The mountains look like underwater mountains, with sparse but present vegetation kind of dotting the ground. The ground is very rocky, there's an occasional heat vent or smoker, also an occasional Mr. Wiggles, and there's an island bordering it. The mountain island can be located by looking from the life pod a little past the bow or left side of the Aurora. There will be some fogs and consistent clouds shrouding one spot. If you pull open your PDA, the clouds there will actually glow. That is where the island is. It's known as the mountain island. Anything on the side of it closer to the Aurora and around towards the back of that island is likely mountain biome. There is also a mushroom forest closer to the life pod bordering the mountains, and you can occasionally see Mr. Wiggles from that forest. Sometimes if you get a little close to him, he can follow you towards the mushroom forest, but you usually can't get through the actual mushroom trees to get to you. While you will end up on the far side of that island at some point, Mr. Wiggles isn't super close on the side farthest from the Aurora, so hug the island until you're on the side closest to the life pod, then you can go towards the life pod pretty safely. The last biome they can spawn in is the dunes. The dunes are located towards the edge of the map on the far side of the map from the Aurora. So if you look at the Aurora and the life pod is directly in front of it, and the Aurora is almost loading out, you are likely in the dunes. The dunes are home to the last 8 Mr. Wiggles on the map. The first time you enter the biome, you will know because of this very reassuring warning.
Detecting multiple Leviathan class life forms in the region. Are you certain whatever you're doing is working?
It looks kind of like the mountains, but with less vegetation, and it's all sand instead of stone, and a little less verticality. Thankfully, there's really not much reason for players to spend more than a few minutes at a time here. Now you know where to find him, but if you have to go near him, what can you do? First, avoid Mr. Wiggle's home at night. There is very little visibility, and unless you have the sonar upgrade, you really can't see him before he aggroes. It's worth noting that the databank says that the Reaper uses echolocation to get around, so if you can hear its roar, it knows you are there. However, it doesn't really function like that in-game, so it usually won't aggro unless you get closer. It will aggro from farther away if you are in the prawn or sea moth or the cyclops when you don't have it set to silent running. If you are using the sea glide and you're not in something, it's going to take getting much closer for him to aggro, and you can usually get away. If you need to be in a submersible, the sonar upgrade for the sea moth or cyclops is very useful for going into Mr. Wiggle's home, as it shows you where he is from farther away. If you have the perimeter defense system on the sea moth, it can also make it so he lets go quicker. If he does aggro, try to outmaneuver him. He only deals damage from his head, so dodging out of range of his hugging arms and running is always a good strategy. If he does grab onto your sea moth, he will hold on for a few seconds, and over that time, deal usually a little over half the sea moth's health. However, he will immediately let go if hit by the perimeter defense system upgrade, and it won't deal further damage. If it attacks the player, it will deal 80% of the player's health and damage if you don't have the reinforced dive suit. If it attacks while the player has less than 80% health, it'll just swallow you, so that's fun. If you have a reinforced dive suit, it only deals 40% of your health and damage. If you are caught outside a submersible and he is attacking, the stasis rifle is your friend. It can freeze him in place for enough time to scan him or run away. They do not respawn. It's also worth noting that if you run away, they may follow you a little into the edges of safer biomes. They usually all have a perimeter they have to stay within, but it doesn't always work. If you want to kill him, there are two main ways to do it. The first is the old-fashioned way. This way is using the stasis rifle and a knife. When he aggros, to get a little closer, you shoot him with a full charge with the stasis rifle, and then get up behind his mandible and then the appendage behind that and start whacking him with your knife. You can't do it towards the tail end because he just doesn't take damage there, so you do have to be up towards the front, but you don't want to get too close because either if he gets out of your stasis early, he can just eat you from there, or sometimes it glitches out and he's able to hit you while he's still stasis. Every 8 seconds or so, back out and reshoot him with the stasis rifle, and then keep attacking with your knife. Eventually, this will kill him. However, the best way to do it is with the prawn suit, one grappling arm, and one drill arm. You can grapple onto him with the grappling arm and drill into him with the drill while being taken for a joyride. Oh, and make sure not to get dragged into the void. While Mr. Wiggles is terrifying, the best way to help fear is to have control. You now have control by knowing where he is and what to do. I hope this helps you enjoy the game as much as it helped me, as this is an extraordinary game with a great story and so much to offer, and it becomes much more accessible with the fear of Reapers calmed down. And hey, if you want, you can feed Mr. Wiggles a peeper for me. I hope this helped. If you have any additional info or feedback, feel free to comment it so others can see it, and have a great day. Many hugs from me and Mr. Wiggles.